It's about 6:05, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the scoping meeting for the Hungry Valley Environmental Impact Report being prepared for the Hungry Valley General Plan Update. I'm Valerie Itoret-Tonagoyena with AECOM and the project manager, excuse me, of the consulting team working with California State Parks. We're glad to have you here today. Just to let everyone know, this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the project website at www.planhungryvalley.com following the meeting. For now, everyone has been placed on mute, but there will be an opportunity for questions and comments at the end of the presentation. I'd like to share our agenda for today. It includes items you see on your screen. First, we'll be providing an introduction to the project team and describe the purpose of the meeting, give an overview of the Hungry Valley General Plan update, go through the environmental review process, and finally provide an opportunity for questions and comments. I'll pass it now to Katie Metro for introductions to the project team.
Hi, welcome. My name is Katie Metro. I'm the General Plan Manager with California State Parks up at headquarters. And today we have several of our Great Basin District staff joining us. We've got Russ Dingman, who's the District Superintendent. We have Chris Hahn, who's the Senior Environmental Scientist, and that was my dog approving. We also have Calista Turner, who's the interpreter of she's the Education and Interpretation Coordinator. And Steve Tomey, who is the Cultural Resources Manager for the district. So thank you very much. I'll pass it back to Valerie.
Thanks. Also from the AECOM team, we have Danny DeBrito. He's the Deputy Project Manager. Delise Delamora, she's one of our environmental planners, and Brianna Shaw, who is also an environmental planner. And so the purpose of today's meeting is to inform agencies and the general public about the Hungry Valley General Plan Update, Environmental Impact Report Process and Scope, how to submit formal comment, formal comments and future opportunities for input. Additionally, the meeting will allow for an opportunity to talk about the EIR, and we'd also like to remind folks that comments to be formally considered as part of the administrative record during the scoping period must be submitted in writing. And what you see here on the screen is a high-level step-by-step process guide that encapsulates the additional steps for each of the tasks. The completed steps in the process are shown in gray. The current step in the process are shown in red, as identified to be the preliminary general plan and draft EIR, which we're at now. And then the upcoming steps are those that are shown in orange, and the opportunities to get involved are noted with the light blue outline star. So as part of this process, we wanted to explain what a general plan is. It is a long-term planning document which guides future development and enhancements of the park. General plans are adopted for all California State Park units to establish long-term visions and goals, as well as identify potential improvements. General plans also direct future management, resource stewardship, public use, and identify future acquisition opportunities. We are currently updating the Hungry Valley General Plan because the original plan was adopted in 1981. Since then, there are new laws and guidelines to consider, as well as land that's been acquired since 1981. It's also important to respond to changing conditions, new technologies, and establish future policies to guide park management. The draft general plan is currently being developed in accordance with the State Parks Planning Handbook and is comprised of chapters that provide a framework for resource stewardship, interpretation, facilities, visitor use, and services. And this slide identifies the various chapters included in the general plan. Chapter 1 provides an introduction to Hungry Valley, its location, background history, and purpose. It also discusses interagency and stakeholder involvement. Chapter 2 details existing conditions of the park, including significant resources, land uses, facilities, recreation, interpretation programs, and park operations. Chapter 2 establishes the baseline against which future changes are evaluated. Chapter 3 relies heavily on the input from the public, regulatory agencies, and other stakeholders to identify issues and opportunities within the park. As part of the Hungary Valley General Plan update, we've incorporated numerous public workshops, surveys, and outreach efforts to obtain valuable input from the public. And then finally, Chapter 4 incorporates the feedback received from the public to identify future improvements within Hungary Valley, identified as a preferred alternative, and establishes goals and guidelines for ongoing park management. As mentioned, the general plan starts with identifying existing conditions at Hungary Valley SVR8. The map you see here is the current conditions at Hungary Valley. The different land use areas of the park are color-coded and include the following: trails only in yellow, distributed riding areas in brown, native grassland areas in light green, and the Oak Woodland Preserve in dark green. Finally, the acquisition area on the top left is shown in light blue. You'll also note that the existing amenities and facilities are listed on the right side of the map. This next slide shows the preferred alternative that was developed through these numerous surveys, concept alternatives, public workshops, and interviews with staff. The preferred alternative includes the existing defined land use areas, incorporating improvements within those related to specific site elements. The proposed site elements improvements are included under categories access and conditions, circulation, facilities, camping, recreation, and amenities. A few notable improvements proposed in the general plan update are the inclusion of the 845-acre acquisition area, now identified as Condor Mesa area, which includes proposed trails and trails connections, as well as a new RV campground. Additionally, in the northern portion of the park is an area identified for new operation supporting facility offices, a new visitor center in the southern portion of the park, and numerous electronic charging stations, automatic payment systems at the various entrance stations, and also road repaving. I'm going to turn it now over to Danny, who will go over the environmental review process.
Now we're going to discuss the statutorily required environmental review process under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, which we'll be completing for the general plan update. Now, what is CEQA exactly? CEQA is an environmental law that applies statewide to projects which have potential effects on the environment, with a few limited exceptions. Projects under CEQA are defined as discretionary actions by public agencies that have the potential to result in a physical change in the environment, either directly or indirectly. A general plan update is considered a project under CEQA, therefore an environmental review is required. The lead agency for the CEQA review is California State Parks, with the final decision-making authority resting with the OHMBR Commission. The purpose of CEQA is to inform agency decision makers and the public of any significant environmental effects, to identify feasible ways to avoid or reduce significant impacts, including implementation of mitigation measures and alternatives, and providing an opportunity for the public and agencies to comment on the environmental analysis of the project. This slide here shows the EIR process under CEQA. It begins with publication of a notice of preparation and public scoping, which is part of the step that we are at currently. We're actually in the middle of the 30-day comment period for the notice of preparation and public scoping period, which ends on December 1st. Following publication of the NOP, we begin preparation of the draft EIR, which will later be released for another public comment period. At that time, it'll be for 45 days. The public and agencies will have another opportunity to review and comment on the environmental analysis, specifically focused on the environmental effects and mitigation measures disclosed in the EIR. Once comments have been received, responses to comments will be prepared, and any revisions will be made to the draft EIR, which will then be incorporated into the final EIR. The final EIR will then be presented to the OHMBR Commission for certification, and a final decision will be made on the project at that time. This slide shows an overview of the topics that will be analyzed in the EIR. These topics align with the CEQA guidelines, Appendix G checklist, which is a standardized list of resource areas that are used for environmental analysis statewide. Additionally, there are several other sections required by CEQA, such as the potential for the project to induce unplanned growth, cumulative impacts, and project alternatives that can reduce environmental impacts. So to provide comments during the public scoping period, which is the period which we're in currently, there are a number of different ways to have your input incorporated into the public record. You can send written responses to the contact shown on your screen, which is Katie Metro, the project manager, the Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Recreation Division, and the address shown on screen. For comments to be formally considered as part of the administrative record, there is an interactive comment form available on the project website at www.planhungryvalley.com, along with a downloadable comment form if you'd like to fill that out manually and mail your comments in. Additionally, you can simply send an email with your comment to info@planhungryvalley.com. Oral comments and feedback will be received today. However, as noted, for comments to be formally considered, please send those comments in writing. So thank you all for joining us today. This concludes our presentation. We will now take any questions that you may have about any of the information that was provided today. You can either use the chat function in the ribbon on the bottom of your screen to type in your questions. General comments can be included as well, and these will be taken in the order received. If you'd like to ask a question verbally, please use the reactions, click the reactions button on the bottom of the ribbon on the bottom of your screen. Click raise hand, and you will be asked to unmute to provide your comment in the order that they're received. If you have called into this presentation, you can press *9 to raise your hand, at which point you will be prompted to unmute yourself and provide your comment. To unmute yourself, if you're calling in on your phone, just press *6, and oral comments will be taken in the order that they are received. So, Brianna, do we have any comments coming in the chat currently?
We have nothing in the chat, but Jeremy is raising his hand. So I'm asking you to unmute now, Jeremy, if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, hopefully you guys can hear me. In this plan, is there any increase in fees or decrease in trails that would affect OHV users?
Katie, Chris, or Russ?
I can take part of that. The general plan does not focus on anything related to the finance of the park, so that's not tied to it. There is, as far as trails, in some areas there may be a slight reduction if we looked at the cultural and natural resources of the park, but there is not a significant change in the trails management of the park. If Russ or Chris would like to add anything to that, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Jeremy, for your question. At this time, there's no rate increase planned for Hungry Valley SVRA. And with the trail connection that we have, we're doing ongoing analysis of all of our trails. Some of our trails have been closed due to winter storms, and we're trying to repair some of those. Vic's Cat was one of those that was temporarily closed. We're looking at either potentially trying to get that reopened or do a reroute. But Chris Hahn and our trail crew have been doing a tremendous job of keeping open the whole SVRA. And so we do not anticipate any closures, permanent closures. There may be some temporary closures to do some rehab and some additional work on the trails, but no permanent closures at this time.
Great, thank you. Amy, your hand is raised if you want to unmute.
All right.
You are on.
Sorry, I was getting a call about something else, but sorry. It's a busy day today. Hey guys, it's good to see you. Russ, Katie, of course, Chris, Steve. I have a couple of different questions. One is about special events and permitting. There have been times when you guys know that, certain entities have asked for permits, and I think the issues have been worked out, but it seems like sometimes the answers to the special events permits, the first one is always no. Or at times it's no. And I'd like to get a better idea. So clubs and different entities that are going to ask for special events permits, they should have a clear avenue and a clear, very clear process going into it, is what's going to be required, how it's going to be required, and how early they have to start it. So it's not exactly part of the special, it's a part of the general plan. But because Hungry Valley is so centrally located to large population areas, there are a number of clubs that like to do events there, as we know. So any elucidation or any kind of tightening up of the regulations would be greatly appreciated. That's the first one. And I sort of canvassed my board of directors to find out what their feeling is. And there's a real feeling that the quality and the quantity of four-wheel drive trails have been reduced over the years. And we know about the issues with side-by-sides, dirt bikes, some collisions. And I'd like to know further about what safety measures are going to be incorporated in the general plan, first of all. And second of all, if there can be, there are a number of four-wheel drive enthusiasts on this meeting. And if the division or general plan team can work closer with the community, especially the four-wheel drive community, make that all their expectations are being met of the experiences that they want to get Hungry Valley.
Great questions. Thank you. I guess we can start with the special events and permitting. Russ, do you want to take that?
Sure, I'm going to kind of piggyback on this one a little bit. So Steve Tomey is our special event coordinator, and he runs special events and filming for the district. I believe that my direction to my staff now is not to say no. And that is a direction that we have discussed as core managers. We like to hear what people have to offer or ask us. So our first priority is we do listen, and we do take consideration of what the special event is going to be. And then we do have a set criteria what the special event you'll need in the way of infrastructure or requirements. And we'll review that as a team. So I can kind of let you know with that, and then I'll let Steve kind of jump in and maybe expand on that. And then we can go back to your second question, Amy. And hi, it's good to see you again. So, Stephen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm having a hard time hearing you. What was the question?
So the question was, Stephen, regarding the special events. I was hoping you would be able to expand on what the criteria is. I know that for a lot of our special events, we have a standard form that we use that we send back to the individuals that are requesting the special event. And then we discuss what those needs are, and we try to provide as much information up front. Usually we ask for a good scope of, not a scope of work, but a good detail of what the special event is, how many people are going to attend, what location in the park they would like to use, what date and time. And then we get down to specific information, such as going to be live music, barbecues, food trucks. And then, of course, we look at that special event and we go through our standard forms, and we try to work with the individual or group that's trying to put on that special event. I know that the Corpus special event for Spook Night or Fright Night has been successful multiple times at Hungry Valley, and we continue to work with Corba and other groups trying to have those special events within the park.
Yeah, usually the only issue typically is the insurance requirements. It's usually the stumbling block for a lot of folks. But we haven't turned anyone away yet that, followed that process.
Great.
Okay, Andy, to your second question, regarding safety in the park, we all know that the off-highway vehicle use is inherently dangerous, but we do our very best to protect everyone within our park. That's why we've initiated the Whips and Flags program that is currently running within 2 different OHV SDRAs, Ocotillo Wells and Hungry Valley. And so we definitely have Whips and Flags. We have safety programs. We have interpretive messaging that we're getting out. Of course, you went to the safety summit, I believe, last couple months ago. I was supposed to be there, but unfortunately I could not attend. And so we are working with our stakeholders and working with the manufacturers and others, try to make sure that safety is our highest priority within the park. And that we want to make sure all riders and users are visible while traveling on the trails. And we know that we've had conflicts in the past, but we're trying to do our due diligence and our best to eliminate those risks and those accidents that occur within the park. Of course, we have a great team at Hungry Valley that if we do get into these situations, we have our state park peace officers and our desert lifeguards that work to make sure that everyone is safe. We have checkpoints coming into the park, both at the north kiosk and the south kiosk, and we would try to talk to all of our visitors and make sure that they have proper safety equipment on and all the regulations are being followed. And so we are always trying to reach out to stakeholders, and we definitely redid the 4x4 course. We worked with the off-highway with the 4x4 groups and trying to make that a better place to recreate. And then we're constantly looking at our trails to make sure that they're compatible and they follow the designs and standards with what we are asked to do so. Chris Hahn, do you have anything else you'd like to add on trails or maintaining trails within the SDRA?
You pretty much have everything. That's great. The one thing we do rely on here is rain to do the maintenance on the trails. So without moisture, it is very difficult. It's nice to see some rain outside right now. So we'll be able to do some trail maintenance here coming up in the near future.
Great. Amy, does that answer your questions at this time?
No, I think it's all really good. And yes, we're all involved in trying to expand, trying to find the best safety program or recommendations, working with the OHMVR division that can be instituted at the SVRAs. And it's tough. It's not an easy thing. And we want the community to, be reassured that the state is working on this. And 2, make sure that they accept it. So from what I know, the Whips and Flags program has been really successful. We haven't heard a lot of complaints about it. So that's really good. It's great that the community is adopting that. And, some of the areas where if we can notice there's less visibility on a trail or something, or a blind curve, those are the kind of things we need to get. But you guys do this on a regular basis, and I'm very encouraged with the Whips and Flags and having a very clear process for special events permitting that will help a lot of people. Especially, we want to encourage everyone to use our state parks, and so the people who are more seasoned, like Point Mugu, do Fright Night, they know how to do it. But there are clubs that are coming along that are a little less experienced, and we want to give them the opportunity to do events at our state parks as well. So that will really help. Thanks.
Great, thank you. David Hess, you had your hand up next. If you'd like to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, two issues that I have a question about. One, presently, because the SVRA blocks access to a chunk of the Los Padres forest, particularly the Alamo Mountain area, right now, at least my experience has been that there's been no issue of having to register and pay to pass through. Is that going to be addressed in the plan? Since that could conceivably be an issue. The other has to do with the electric vehicle charging stations. Do we have a cost estimate and what percentage of the budget's going to go to doing that? Is it something that can be started small and then be added as additional presumable vehicles requiring charging come on the market and come into use? And is there a thought about is there any concern about having them near the entrances where they may become I-5 stopover sites rather than for the use of the people actually using the SVRA rather than people just traveling on I-5?
Great questions. Thank you. So the first one is about access through, and if that would be in the plan. Valerie, are you able to provide an answer or direct that?
Yes, we do cover access in the park. I'm not sure if you could repeat. I didn't hear where the specific access you were talking about.
The concern is that because the park sits across Gold Hill Road, which is within the Los Padres Forest, frequently people that are going to the forest and up the Alamo Mountain area have to pass through the park. And are they going to be hit with a registration fee to get through?
That actually would be better answered by either Russ or Chris.
So I know the answer to this question, unless
Our
Russ, you want to take that.
Oh, no, please, Calista, jump right on in there. Thank you so much.
So currently we hand out a special colored pass when they come through the entrance kiosk, and that's a pass through. It just means that they're going to Los Padres National Forest and there's no fee for it. So they just show us their pass on their way out. And if they go after hours and there's no one in the kiosk, all they need to do is just tell us that they have passed going straight through into Los Padres National Forest. We also cross post when that gate closes, because a lot of people think that we control that gate, which is not the case. It's controlled by Los Padres National Forest. But because so many people do access it, I'm in charge of the social media. So I make sure that we post when it closes, when we know. But there's no fee charged.
Great.
And then we were going to put the preferred alternative slide back up if we could, just to note where some of the proposed charging stations are. At this time, there isn't any set plans of where they are, but there's general locations of them. And my understanding is that there also is current charging stations, but they would be within the park and designated for more of the use of visitors to the park. And if anyone from State Parks wants to add to that.
So I think the question here and maybe the answer that has been asked is that currently the department has chargers for its state vehicles and our own fleet within the vehicles. We do have very limited charging stations for the public at this time. However, we are working with other groups such as PG&E, Southern California Edison, and our facilities management unit to start looking at where those charging stations for the public will be. We are looking at charging stations at different areas within the park that people can plug in their vehicles. So that should be addressed in the general plan, and will be looked at in the general plan of having public use charging stations. So that is definitely a great topic, and we're looking forward to trying to at least put a solution to that. The other issue about the I-5 stopover, part of our conceptual plans, looking at long-term planning for the Country Valley, is that we would like to create an area in the Gorman area if possible, potentially a visit center, another administrative area, for individuals to pull off and to be able to charge their cars while we walk around, a visitor center or some type of area that's right along the I-5 corridor. It's something that we've discussed multiple times, knowing that we have very small entrances out of north and south kiosks, but we're hoping to expand that and to have that in the prime Gorman area.
Great. David, do you have any follow-up questions, or does that answer your questions at this time?
I think that that answers it. I guess my only concern is spending SVRA money if we're looking at an I-5 convenience site. Maybe some other department ought to be funding that, but that would be my only.
No, the department would not be funding this. This is usually with partnerships with private entities or utility companies. State Parks is not in the business of doing this type and spending trust funds dollars on providing public charging stations. Most of our contracts are through a partnership with utility companies and or out to a private contractor or concession.
Great, thank you. Randy Emsley, you had your hand up next if you'd like to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, thank you. Randy Emsley, President, Point Mugu Four-Wheel Drive Club. I have a couple questions here. First and foremost, I want to, Amy, thank you for clarifying that on Fright Night, and thank you for the kind words about our club. I just want to say the permit process for us, flawless. This is the second year now that I've done the permit process, working with Don and Steve. They are great people to work with. I have no complaints in how it works. And she was right by saying, you know, there's a checkbox thing here that we got to do, and not everybody knows. Maybe you could put something out there. So before these club members or other clubs want to put on an event at Hungry Dolly, they can go and look and see what they need. That way they have all their ducks in a row. This question may be for Russ, I'm not sure, but since he brought up VIX, I just wanted to ask, is this in the general plan? Is this something that we're talking about? And if not, I just wanted to put it out there again. Point Mugu has offered to go in as volunteers to do the maintenance needed on that trail to get it back up and running. And that offer still stands. And then I just want to clarify on one thing. Will there be electronic rangers? Like electronic kiosk? And if so, will the pass through to Alamo Mountain be available on that? Or is that something that we're going to have to talk to an actual person for?
Great, thank you. Russ or Chris, do you have an answer for the trail maintenance at this
Chris,
time?
Chris, if you can jump in and answer that question, I think you're better qualified to answer than I am.
All right. Yeah, in fact, this week we were working on Big Scat Trail. Unfortunately, I did not see the heavy equipment operator today, but we should be very close to getting that trail back open to the public. With this rain, it's going to really help us out getting things compacted. We're also working on Gorman Trail at this point in time. Rain is very much needed to get some of these trails compacted back down as we need them. So hopefully soon we'll have Big Scat back open too.
And just to add to that, the general plan does touch on trails as far as the goals and policies associated with that. The general plan is a high-level planning document, but as part of the goal is to continually look at trails and manage them and have all the policies in place for future management.
Thank you. And then the second part of that question was asking about electronic kiosks and again, the pass through to the other parks. Callista, maybe you have some answer on that? Or Val?
As I mentioned, I'll just start off. As I mentioned, for the general plan, there's general areas that have been identified. But as you know, park management, as Russ had says, looks and evaluates the various locations based on their partnerships. So there's no set places as of now for where those would be, as well as the automated rangers. Those are also in the plan as well. There's just proposed locations for them, but not specific facilities that have been identified.
We do we do have the section in the general plan that talks about partnerships. So if this is something that would be a partnership with the Forest Service to maybe streamline some of the entrance capabilities, you know, that could be something we could look at the park operation level.
Great, thank you. Randy, do you have any other questions to add on there?
One more quick one here. On the preferred alternative map, the acquisition area, is that the only thing that has changed? Or do you have maybe an overlay so we can actually see what the changes are in the two maps?
Yeah, the biggest change is the acquisition area for planning for that, obviously, because you know, it was acquired after the original plan in 81 was done. And then adding it to the current land uses. And during our concept alternative meetings that we had, we did have that comparison. And if you go to the website, and we may be able to pull it up before the end of the meeting, there does show somewhat of a comparison in the various features. Delise, if you want to pull that map back up, the map does show both existing and proposed. And those key features that I had mentioned during the presentation are identified, like I said, the acquisition area, some of the operational facilities, the visitor center, as well as, I'm trying to think what the other one that I mentioned was, and I'm not sure if we can zoom in, and I know it's probably really hard to see, but the proposed features are the park are highlighted with a P, and then the existing are with an E. But like I said, you can also go to the website and browse through that and get a little bit more idea of things that would be different than the previous plan.
Okay, my biggest concern is we don't want to lose riding area at the park.
Correct, and I understood, and those have not changed. Other than, like I mentioned, a little bit of the distributed riding has is proposed to be altered, but that's mainly to conserve cultural and natural resources. But what you see here, as far as the land use and trails, they're very similar to the existing.
Okay, so there is no overlay. It's just if I wanted to see them side by side, I'd need to go to the website. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. I mean, we could probably do that for you by the end of the meeting if we get these two next to each other, and we can do a comparison there.
All right, that's fine. I just thought it would be nice for people to be able to see exactly what's being proposed in the preferred alternate.
Yeah. And if you go to the existing, we could do it real fast and it could look like an overlay.
So I do see a change already. Okay.
Yeah. So it's really, and if you take the cursor, it's, yeah. So there you go.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Tom, you had your hand up next. Oh, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you go.
Yeah, how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
This is my first meeting, so be easy on me. You can tell there's a lot of depth in this. And I'm an old guy, just turned 60, and I just retired from the Boeing company. So I understand about all this technology stuff like you just cannot imagine. As a chief technology avionics, so I understand about traffic control and logistics and all that stuff more than you could ever possibly know. I did go over the general plan in detail. I went over the proposed, and you know, I'm an old guy. I've been wheeling up in these mountains since I was 5 years old with my dad and grandfather, and all the way up into the Sierra. So I know this area well. I've been a background guy for 50 plus years supporting clubs, San Luis Obispo Four-Wheel Drive Club, and now Point Mugu, and honored to help in any way I can. And I really appreciate all the effort that's been put into Hungry Valley, but I can tell you as a guy that goes from, like, I didn't go to the desert for many, many years because I love the Sierras so much. So when I got involved with Point Mugu, they're a wonderful group of guys. They love the desert and they love their Hungry Valley. And I'll tell you, that's a lot of dust for an old guy like me. So one of the values that I'm bringing from this perspective that I'm hoping you guys will appreciate is I'm coming from a time warp. I'm going from being a teenager and a 20-year-old guy that raced dirt bikes and was very active in all these mountains, and mountain bikes broke both my legs. I have a great appreciation for stuff like this. And now being an older guy saying, you know, I want to camp. I want to make sure my family, my 8 kids, and everybody has a good time. But one of my quick observations about Hungry Valley as I re-engaged over the last few years is it's becoming Disneyland. And so what I mean by that direct comment is this. I think the general plan needs to focus on the core strategies and the core outcomes that we're trying to do in the next 5 to 10 years. And why am I saying that? If you look at the U.S. Census Bureau data, and I'm going to put this in my formal comments that I expect to be in the public record, is you will see we're going from 40 million people in 2020 to 2022 to over 100 million people in 2030. There is not one point in the general plan or this proposed that talks about growth. And we have to address the elephant in the room. And I think with the other elephant in the room is, you know, I have a Mach-E electric Mustang. I know that stuff well. I've had a Bolt. I know that stuff well. To expect you're going to facilitate an SVRA to support automobiles and motorhomes, I think is getting away from our core values. So I'll start with this comment is the strategies and outcomes at a high level need to be crystal clear and target our core values that we're trying to make sure the basics of off-road camping, RVing is not about making an amusement park for RVs. There are plenty of amusement parks for RVs around the nation. So specific comments that you're going to hear about that I'll submit is making sure that the general plan is addressing growth. Growth is no kidding. We could argue 40 million, 50 million, 60 million today, but a simple trend line and a histogram will show you 100 grand is very feasible in 2030. You could argue that 10, 20%, but nobody can argue growth. Adding buildings for staff and administrative controls, administrative people and processes sounds like more bureaucracy. We need to do exactly the opposite. You hear about artificial intelligence, you hear about machine learning, you hear about all this stuff. And those of you that are not in the know, that may not make sense. But I'm telling you, the days of people running around on pickup trucks, checking on people in campsites on whether they have a physical ticket or not, those days are over. They're over at the beach, and they need to be over in our parks. So that's going to be the second point you'll see in my comment. So we need to address and leverage the efficiencies of the technology and not run away from it, because it's a direct cost saving. So the money that we're putting in through our funds and our fees should be being towards things that really make us more efficient and lower the bureaucracy. I love the comment from Mr. Hess about the gate. That was perfect, because you don't know how many times I've been called over the years. Hey, so-and-so stuck inside this gate. They shut it down. So to answer your question about where the location is for those automated gate minders, anywhere there's a gate, there should be a piece of electronics with a solar panel to make sure it can communicate and open up the gate. There should be no people involved in that, just like they do in 99% of the hotels you go to. So I think, you know, the patrol guidance needs to be addressed in the general plan as well. You know, expecting people to drive around trucks on off-road trails, that's really old school. You need to do it just like they're doing in the military. They're relying on drone technologies. They don't have guys on pickup trucks going out. That's what the Taliban does. That's not what the U.S. military does. That is not what any sophisticated organization is. So I'm encouraging us, and I'm saying us because I want to help, because I know this stuff. We need to start laying down the groundwork on strategies and plans that take us into much more efficient, less people-dependent processes, so things can just work. You don't need all that stuff. The other piece I noticed as an opportunity is I'd like to see us a partnership with Point Magoo, Polo Drive Club, and the OHVMR grants. I went through there and I noticed the grant hasn't had a physical review since 2016. I noticed we didn't have any grants associated to our park and our clubs. And to me, that's a great place to get some funds and make some big win-wins. I think we have an opportunity, especially with this new acquisition area. And maybe if we can tie it into Lockwood and Miller Jeep Trail, you know, one of the big disappointments old guys like me and others have is we used to run Fright Night on Miller. We never ran Fright Night inside the park. You know, I was just like, what are we doing, right? So I know that seems nice and greasy for some of you, but us old guys were like, well, hey, we want to get back to the core values of we want to run Fright Night on a trail. We should be able to do that. We should be able to do that together. So grants is an opportunity I think that we can work from. I'd like to see us have a theme in the general plan about bureaucracy busting. We should be rewarding our staff and our team members and our public and community about what did you do to reduce the bureaucracy on, maybe it's a permit, maybe it's site access to gate number 1, 2, 3 through the ranger, but somewhere we need to reward bureaucracy busting. Make it simple for people to access our land. This is our land. And brick and mortar. We should not be investing $1 in brick and mortar. This goes back to my point on strategy. So strategy needs to be first. What is our target outcome? Are we making Disneyland? And I'm using that as an extreme. Or are we returning to our core off-road, just simple trails, simple dispersed camping, keep it simple. And oh, by the way, there's a place for motorhomes and there's a place for EVs and they're over here. And back to Mr. Hess's comment, I completely support what he's saying. That should be outside the park and not inside the park. We should not be creating Disneyland. So I really don't have any questions for you. It's just more I'm looking for strategy and outcome in this general plan and a vision for 2030. Because where we're going right now, we're going to have more of the same. And the more of the same is people getting hurt because we have too many people in too small of an area. And I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Katie, did you want to respond?
Yeah, so we're the OHMBR divisions and the strategic planning division is also working on another project that you're probably very familiar with, at least most of the folks that are attending, called the OHV Access Project. And at the end of this meeting, I'd like to promote that a little bit because we are having a public meeting tomorrow in Bakersfield if you're in the area. And the part of this project is to look at ways to improve OHV access, including trail connectivity. So this is actually a great opportunity to work with Los Padres on their gate and look at ways to improve that connection between Hungry Valley and Los Padres. So we've got another project that this actually could fall right into very nicely. Since their gate, their property is outside the state park boundary, there's nothing really we can do, but we can foster that partnership and see if we can, use this project as a way to get that kind of stuff done. So,
yeah.
And as part of the public involvement, we have had stakeholder meetings, and so State Parks is actively, like Katie said, partnering with them and trying to make sure that future accessibility is there.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. We have Jeremy and Jared. So Jeremy, your hand was up first. If you had another comment or question.
Yeah, I want to circle back to David's comment and just get clarification on it. I know she said the current procedure was to hand out a pass and not charge people that were using the OHV Park for ingress and egress to like Miller Trail and Lockwood Trails. I just want to clarify, is that actually addressed in the general plan, or is that just a procedure that that's understood?
In the general plan, we do talk about access to the adjacent properties, and referring to the current policies that are in place and looking at those policies throughout the life of the general plan. It's not stated specifically that policy, but you know, the overarching policy is mentioned.
Great. Anything else on that, Jeremy? No. Okay, Jared McLeod, or I probably messed up your last name, but if you want to unmute and ask your question. Oh, you're still muted.
We may be able to unmute.
It looks like the audio isn't connecting.
So, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Oh, great. Jared McLeod, Vice President, Point Mugu Four-Wheel Drive Club, also with Friends of Oceano Dunes. Thank you, Katie, Russ, and team for putting this together tonight. I have a few things. So first and foremost, being a state vehicular recreation area, OHV, that is focus number one. So no matter what's addressed in the general plan, that's got to be first and foremost. The mission here is to preserve and expand OHV access opportunities. That's not a one-time thing. That's a, sorry, that is a constant process. So as we expand conservation efforts, this needs to be done in scale. As access points or trails or even temporarily closed for conservation efforts, we need that no net loss philosophy brought here to Hungry Valley. So if something's going to be closed temporarily, permanently, we need that made up with new trails open. It needs to go hand in hand. So that's got to be focused on number one on all of this. The permitting process and info. Yes, thank you to the team, Steve, to Randy's point, helping us with our events. The process has been very easy, and we appreciate the support from them. As far as the LE and the desert lifeguards for our events, they've been great. So props on that, and thank you to the staff. Regarding the EV charging stations, we have a few concerns on this. So this is the way things are going. Hungry Valley, you drive through the park, there's not a lot of power out there, right? Pulling these EV charging stations into the park poses some concerns as far as bringing high voltage into the park. We already have to comply with seasonal fire restrictions within the park. If we're just there with a camp out, you know, certain times of year we can have a fire, others no. Now we're talking about pulling high voltage systems in for EV charging stations into an SVRA. So we're curious if being in an EIR, if fire risk assessments have been done with this. I think we all know the risks that are posed past years with wildfires around California and power related causes and things like that. And we hope that is a point of focus for the general plan and EIR. VIX Cat Trail. Yes, we are happy to work with Hungry Valley staff. Russ, please reach out. We are willing to work with you. I know Trailblazers would be happy to oblige as well, and work with park staff, maintenance staff to make that happen. In our view, anything other than necessary maintenance and reopening the trail would be deemed unacceptable. And an issue, especially being as that is a historic access point, as well as a historic emergency access point. So closing VIX to have an alternate or a bypass is not really an option, but we are happy to work with Hungry Valley staff to make sure that gets open. The reservation system going digital, yeah, that seems to kind of be the way. I have a question. Are we going to be moving this to an online Reserve California? I think I asked that at a past meeting. I will tell you firsthand with Oceano Dunes, the Reserve California system is not the most efficient. and always seems to be the first step towards restricting or limiting access or capacity. And Oceano Dunes is literally the poster child for that. So I am curious if we are moving to a reserve California. If so, you know, we do have some concerns. We don't want to see this get complicated. You know, it's a place we come to camp and off-road, you know. So and then clarification regarding the general plan. If there are going to be any changes, modifications, or reductions factored into the general plan or anything moving forward at Hungry Valley regarding OHV, day use, or camping use limits for the park. And then Condor Mesa expansion. There will be trails. The summary talks about the trails as well as the past meetings we've had with you. Clarification regarding what these trails are going to look like. What types of trails are these going to be? Are these going to be one-way trails? Are these going to be, you know, dual sport trails? Are these going to be for the Jeep guys? What are we looking at the Condor expansion area? So that's what I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the first question was on the OHV access. Russ or Chris, do you want to expand or answer that? Oh, did we lose them?
Looks like Rusty, you're still on mute, and it looks like Chris
Sorry.
may have dropped.
Can you repeat the question on access, please?
Brianna, are you referring to the initial one regarding
The very first question? Yeah.
Yes, you had a question on preserving and expanding the OHV access.
Yeah, so I mean, so at all of our SVRAs, that is the mission of the 9 SVRAs that were set aside for the state park system, is to expand, protect and expand OHV access within the parks. Constantly be growing. I think Tom touched on that a little bit. So I don't know if it was really a question. I was just mostly stating, as we have things closed, which right now we do, but when things are closed for conservation efforts, either temporarily or permanently, that additional trails need to be opened up to compensate for the loss of access. So if we lost a half-mile section of a loop, a bypass, then we would expect to see a half-mile or more opened up of a new trail.
So this is kind of a two-part question for us. Our goal, of course, is not to limit access or close routes within the SVRA. What we have right here, right now, is what we can continue to push forward. We're always looking for alternatives and potential new routes that if we can put them in, we will. If we do close a temporary route, we hope not to close it for any long given periods of time. But there is repair and maintenance needed. So we are looking into that. We do not want to have our visitors not use our park and use our SVRA. It's super important that they be able to recreate. This is what the mission of the SVRA is. With us being located in between Los Angeles and Bakersfield, we know that we get a lot of people that come here to ride. So our main goal is to make sure that we have the staff on hand to make sure that the repairs are done in a timely manner and to move forward. And expanding access to additional lands. I know that Katie is working on the access plan and trying to work with to require that and try to improve on that. But I also know the division is also looking into trying to create another SVRA. We knew that the need for another SVRA, especially in Southern California, is greatly needed. We have a heavy population down here in Southern California. Hungry Valley is a small, it's 26,000 acres. It gets filled up fairly quickly on busy holiday weekends, as we all know. So Thanksgiving's coming up. People are already going to start moving in on Monday to start wanting them to ride and enjoy the park. So we are working with division and we're working with the other district superintendents and within the SVRAs trying to maximize our opportunity for recreation in the SVRAs. Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything about trails or anything about repairs and how we're managing our route system.
And so we basically manage our route system and we go out and do assessments on the trails. And they are rated at that point in time and fixed according to that schedule. As I always say, that rain is our friend as long as we don't get too much at one time. It's a beautiful rain outside right now for us. So we're hoping that this next week or the week after Thanksgiving, we'll be able to get to more trail maintenance going on in the park. So at this point in time, I don't see any reason why we'd be closing down any trails. You know, it's my goal to get the trails back open and usable for our public. So.
And I'd like to also mention that the general plan is a really high level document. It looks at all of the potential land uses and what the land can support with within our various regulations and resource protection. The next step in this is to develop a road and trail management plan, and I've probably heard me talk about that with Red Rock and other one of our many planning projects. But what the road and trail management plan will do, we'll look at the recommendations in the general plan and actually look at ways to improve the existing trail network, look at potential changes to the trail network, possibly connections, improving connections and such. And so that'll be a project that will be coming down the road and down the trail after this general plan is produced. So that's another opportunity. It also includes lots of public input and working with stakeholders to look at some of those options for the trails.
Great. And then the second question was on bringing in the EV charging and looking at wildfire impact analysis and energy, and if that's addressed in the general plan. Val?
Yeah, I can answer this one.
Okay.
Yes, we definitely, with all the various resources and wildfire being one of the key factors that has been added to the CEQA process, that we're definitely looking at that and have plans and policies in the general plan associated with wildfire. So yes, it will be looked at.
Great. And I think there was a couple other comments on trails, but I don't know if you those were answered for you, Jared, or if you had a follow-up question.
The VIX Caltrail, more so a statement. The remaining for the reservation system question on Reserve California, modifications of park use limits for OHV, day use and camping, and then the Condor Mesa expansion trail uses.
Okay. So maybe that online. Go ahead, Mel.
That's no, I was just gonna say that's quite a lot in one. I can take pieces of it, and then state parks folks, please jump in as you see fit. Right now, we have the Condor Mesa area is designated as trails only, and as part of that trails and management plan that Katie had mentioned, we'll look at that to identify the location of those trails. But obviously the goal of the park is to maintain connectivity. As far as the reservation, that would probably be better answered by someone from state parks.
So the reservation system, currently, we are not entering into any contract with Reserve California to put Hungry Valley SVRA on a reservation system. We are trying to do some automation for the kiosks, but we do not plan to limit. We only close Hungry Valley when all of our campgrounds are full, but we are not trying to limit day use to our SVRA, and we are not trying to limit camping within our SVRA. We believe the way the park is designed right now is fine. If we find that there is a change or a need, but right now that is not the current management of the park, and we are not going to be entering into Reserve California. Connectivity is a big issue for us. We don't have connectivity for every place, and it's really hard to check people in and out, especially when we have primitive camping in the SVRA. So our preferred alternative and our preferred choice into the management is to allow people to come in, camp, first come, first serve. And then also the same with day use, come in and use the park. We are not into limiting or restricting use in the park. But the only time we would restrict or limit use when we get to our full carrying capacity, and we have no more campsites and we have no more space. But that happened very often, but it occasionally has happened. But our main goal is to let people come in and recreate at the SVRA.
Good answers. Thank you for that, Russ. Appreciate it.
Muted myself. Tom, you had raised your hand as well.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Yeah, I just wanted, Jared brought up some really, really good points. And, and this is where the technology piece may not be everybody's forte, right? I mean, if you think about people accessing gates out when there's no internet connection, guess what? They have access to gates, and it can be as simple as just a card. So I just think we have to reimagine simplicity. And that's why I touched on that bureaucracy item about what are we doing to eliminate the bureaucracy. And I greatly appreciate that goal of the Hungry Valley staff and making sure it's open and accessible. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm just looking at ways of getting rid of those doggone padlocks, right? And I'm not suggesting connecting up to the internet. So I'm going to be the last person that suggests that. But there's lots of simple ways that people do in their homes every single day with their little risk things, and they open up their door and it just opens up. So lots of simple solutions out there. We just need to have a way to do that. And I'm hoping that can be addressed in the general plan, because we really need simplicity in Hungry Valley.
Great, thank you. At this time, I'm not seeing any other hands raised or comments in the chat. If anyone else does have anything else, they can add it to the chat or raise your hand. Randy, your hand is up if you would like to unmute.
Yeah, just real quick. Question for Russ. Was it you that called me regarding VIX? I think it was probably back in September.
No, that would not be me. Could have been my chief ranger, Jack Gorman, who is transferred up to the OHMVR division. But I'm not sure who did make that call to you regarding VIX Cats. Could have been John Cunningham. I'm not sure who reached out to you, Randy.
I believe it was John Cunningham, now that I think about it.
Yeah, John Cunningham usually works with our volunteers.
Okay. If I put my phone number in the chat, could you give us a call in regards to helping out? We really want to help out with VIX if we can.
Yes, we can do that. Or you can send it personally to my email address, which is russ.dingman, DINGMAN @parks, PARKS.ca.gov.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was all.
Great, thank you. Well, if there are no further questions at this time, I will pass it back to Katie to go over other ways to get involved and stay involved, the next steps in this process.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Lovely turnout. So the best way that you can help us out is to look at the project webpage. It's www.planhungryvalley.com. Sign up for email updates. We are in the process of...
Sorry to interrupt you, Katie. If we could just move the slide back to, there we go. Thank you.
There we go, yeah.
One more, there.
Okay, yes, planhungry.com. It's a great web page. You can also look at previous information about the project. And when we get to the point of releasing the actual preliminary general plan and draft environmental impact report, if you sign up for updates, then you'll receive a notice that shows that you can download it from this webpage and review it, provide comments on the actual general plan. So so keep in touch. And this is, as you know, this is a public process, and it's not over yet. So we hope that you stay involved. Feel free to send questions about the plan. See, yeah, you can see here, you can sign up for email updates. And can you go to the slide where they can also ask questions? I think it's for the email address.
At Planet Info Plan. Sorry.
I think we had it.
planhungryvalley.com.
There you go.
How to send if you could go to how to send comments slide.
It's several slides back. If you scroll back, I think 3 or 4 slides.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So if you have questions about this process or about the general plan, feel free to send us an email at info@planhungryvalley.com. If you have specific comments for the environmental impact report, the scoping, this is what we're doing now, please send your written comments via email to that info@planhungryvalley.com. You can also put them in writing at the address you see there on the screen. And there's also a comment form on the project website, which you'll see right there. So anyway, appreciate everyone's input, and we will look forward to seeing you in the future. And so, yeah, so when I said the next steps, here we go. Next steps is that we will be preparing that draft general plan and draft environmental impact report. And then you'll have the ability to look at the plan in full and really do a deep dive into all of the things that that you may be interested in, including, the trails and the EV stations and such. And then we have 45 days to for those comments from the public. And then we'll review those, and then we'll make adjustments to the general plan and EIR. That one will also include all the response to comments we've received. And then the final general plan and EIR will be brought forward to the OHMBR Commission for their consideration to approve the general plan and certify the EIR. So those are our next steps. So it's going to be another year or so before we get to that point. But at this, at this time, stay involved. Send us your comments on the environmental impact, potential environmental impacts of the plan, and check out the website when you can.
Once again, thank you everyone for attending. This concludes the meeting, and as mentioned before, we will be putting the recording on the website, and the commenting period on the scoping issues for the EIR closes on December 1st. Unless State Parks had anything else, I think we'll conclude there.
Great meeting.
Thanks, everyone.